Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast, the podcast for those that are curious about what's possible inside their four walls. Before we get into this episode, let's hear a word from our sponsors that make this all possible. Ready to modernize your operations? It's time to partner with Peak Technologies. As North America and Europe's largest system integrator, Peak delivers end-to-end digital supply chain and enterprise mobility solutions across warehousing, logistics, and manufacturing. With over 40 years of expertise, they design, deploy, and manage the technology that modernizes your facilities, driving measurable operational performance. As a premier Zebra Technologies partner, Peak combines deep AI DC expertise with industry-leading devices, machine vision, and automation to deliver scalable, future-ready solutions. Trust Peak Technologies to power your digital transformation and head to peaktech.com. That's peaktech.com. Are you looking to grow sales this year? Strategic Marketing Communications can help you do that. For more than a decade, Masterplans Communications, Marketing, and PR has been building awareness and creating demand for material handling companies. MPC offers strategic marketing and PR planning, media relations, video productions, photography, websites, digital marketing, social media, and more. Connect with MPC at masterplancommunications.com and on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast and are looking for more content around warehouse automation, then check out TGW Logistics' new podcast, The Automation Journey. TGW is a customer-first, holistic warehouse automation company, and they understand that every journey of exploring, implementing, and maintaining automation looks different. In their podcast, they touch on all different topics and questions you may be facing right now. Whether you're brand new to automation or a seasoned vet, find the automation journey today on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. As we all know, in most yard operations, technology isn't the problem. Execution is. The workforce turns over faster than processes can stabilize. Outsourced vendors manage tasks, not outcomes. Costs rise while service levels slip. Safety issues are a constant, and leadership still lacks a clear, consistent view of yard performance across the network. Yard management systems were supposed to bring control, but the truth is that software alone can't enforce process discipline, develop labor, or manage equipment day to day. That's why many enterprise shippers are shifting to YMX Logistics. YMX Logistics is a national third-party logistics provider focused exclusively on yard operations. YMX manages yards as an operating system, aligning people, processes, equipment, safety, sustainability, and technology into an integrated operation. So, if you are interested in learning how you can optimize your operations while improving sustainability and lowering your total operating costs, visit ymxlogistics.com/next. That's ymxlogistics.com/next. Thank you to our sponsors, and now let's get to the podcast.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, got a returning guest joining us, Jonathan Briggs, who's now the Senior Vice President of Sales at ShipMonk. And Jonathan is he's much more than just a sales guy, I will say, in this world. He knows his stuff. He knows definitely what's going on within the fulfillment world, especially around technology too. Very, very ingrained in that. So very interested in getting him on, talking a little bit about ShipMonk, who we've never had on the show before, and learning about that, but also what he's seeing in the market. We're recording this just coming out of peak season, kind of at the tail end here. So seeing kind of his perspective on what's been happening there, and also what he's seeing around kind of automation and what's happening, what's the real deal, what's hype a little bit, and we'll get some insights from him on that too as well. So, Jonathan, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Well, I appreciate it. Always a pleasure to talk shop with you. Thanks for having me on yet again. So I guess the first couple times have gone smooth enough
you did okay. You did okay. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, I appreciate it. So thanks for having me. You're absolutely right. We're perfect time where we're coming in post peak. So lots of fun things to talk about. Look forward to getting into it.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for coming back, of course, on the show as well. So as I mentioned, we haven't had ShipMonk on the show before. So before we kind of dive into the meat of the discussion, why don't you just give us a brief overview of ShipMonk and what it is that ShipMonk is all about?
Yeah, so I guess ShipMonk's kind of a longtime listener, first time caller. Is that what we're saying here? So
potentially, yeah.
Yeah. No, so it's interesting. So ShipMonk has been doing this for about 11 years now. And like I tell our teams internally, like we grew up and matured a ton and we forgot to tell the market about it. And so who we were when we started this thing and what we're doing now is exponentially different. Other than the logo and the name, it's drastically different. Like, right. So early days, it was simple profiles, smaller customers, low SKU counts, max SKU counts, high velocity type things, but not a lot of complexity to the inventory. Fast forward here, and in 2025, we've launched bonded warehousing across 4 markets. Our emphasis on apparel, as we speak, we're in the middle of onboarding of an apparel brand doing 50,000 SKUs, hundreds of thousands of orders a month. So it's a very different look and feel, but the core of the business is still the same, right? Built around its own tech stack, OMS, WMS, TMS, IMS, et cetera. And so that's been their core, and their heartbeat is run the 4 walls themselves and have their own tech stack. And it keeps iterating, getting better over time. AI now is enhancing it. So the capability to drive the warehouse, and then the window to the warehouse that our merchants end up seeing when they get to see our dashboards and within the ShipMonk app, that's still the same heartbeat. We just have gotten a lot bigger, stronger muscle and capabilities. And primary focus for us now is multi-channel clients, right? There's no such thing as a single channel customer here in 2025 rolling into 2026. So we see something like 6 to 8 integrations per client now versus like onboard Shopify and away we go, right? Back in the early days. Yeah. And so we're not just complexity within the customer, but it's also in their sales channels, it's in their packouts. We've gone heavy into individualization or personalization at the packout and at the item level. So things like embroidery, engraving, if you think about if you were to go to stanley.com and purchase something, and we're going to etch that. You put your face and the New Warehouse podcast on a Stanley mug. My team's going to make that thing happen. And do so different from what I said 10 years, 11 years ago when they started this thing now, to really leaning into, what brands want as they scale, right? I want to be able to customize, personalize, and tailor a solution around them, but all still within a shared use environment. So high level, that's what ShipMonk looks like today, rounding out 25, heading into 2026.
Very nice. And good to hear that, and kind of that history and evolution as well, and kind of the growing up, as you said, I think, in there. Yep. And from I guess from a perspective of like size and operational network, I mean, how many buildings does ShipMonk have?
So 12. I've got 8 buildings across the U.S., nine buildings as coming on board, 6 markets, roughly speaking. And then also operating globally in markets of Canada, UK, and Czech Republic. So it's starting to really scale and grow. And I'm bullish on the international locations, right? You spent this year talking a lot about probably complexities and tariffs and all the changes in the landscape.
Talk about tariffs this year? Yes.
I think,
of course
I think I heard it come up once or twice on this year. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about is cross-border international is in growth decline because of all of that. Like, it's not just a US thing, it's globally where de minimis has gone away. And so now people are starting to push to localize inventory and say, all right, I'll just take the duties and taxes on a wholesale basis. And so we're not going to see as many things hopping on a plane and going cross-border anymore versus let's do bulk let's get a localized partner in those markets, and let's do localized fulfillment, localized returns, et cetera. So we're well positioned for that in having, markets that we've been in for now almost 4 or 5 years in the international landscape. And it's one tech stack, one integration. So very simple to take somebody out of the US and put them abroad.
Yeah, interesting, and I think that's a great call out too, because I've seen a lot of that too, and just discussion both on the podcast and just in general in the industry, where a lot of people looking for how to solve for that now, because it kind of the appeal of obviously the elimination of de minimis and things like that has taken a lot of that away. So very interesting that you're seeing that too, and you're bullish on that. It's good to hear. So as we look now, I mean, when we're recording this right now, right, it's December 17th as we're recording this episode, and we're getting like right to the end here of essentially the holiday peak shipping season. I mean, we're about to hit those cutoffs for the last minute shoppers, which I am one of, so I'm going to be doing some shopping tonight probably. But yeah, I think we're getting to the end of that. So what have you seen this peak season, and what is kind of going on? What are some of the trends you see either emerging or going away even?
Yeah, well, first of all, where did the year go? Like, how are we at December 17th? Like, that's mind blowing to me that we're heading into holidays here. But you're absolutely right. Like, we're in the second peak now where we've got merchants that are chasing that domino of cutoff time for standard and ground and then air. And so all the way through the 22nd, I've got shipping methods that can be ordered and be able to deliver in hands by Christmas. So you're safe. You can still get into
you're telling me
like Dr. Swatch and get yourself some soap. You're safe. You're good. So we do have that, but the real peak obviously was BFCM, and we didn't know what to expect this year. Candidly, it was a very different year in terms of how sales cycles went. And, we saw some merchants that were trading downward across parts of the year. We saw a lot of extra sales happen, like with, a double dose of Prime Days this year. And now Prime can't just be Prime Days. You got to have a Target week and a Walmart week and all those things. And so we see, it's like, all right, if we saw spikes in September and we saw them in October and November, are the consumers still buying, BFCM? Is that gone? So we saw it elongate. We really started hitting stride mid-November for the direct-to-consumer side. Sales coming earlier, a little bit more often, trying to spread that out. And then we still hit forecast. We had a strong forecast, plus almost 25% year over year. We came in a couple points actually above it in what we expected. Nice. Any given day, it was pretty on, but we, if we missed it one day, we made up for it the next day. It was like a product didn't drop yet, or a sale was delayed, or whatever the case may be. But within the weeks, for sure, and the team really worked hard and got us fully cleaned up, midweek of Cyber Monday week, and so felt like we did solid by our merchants and what they come to us to do, and that's be able to deliver when they're at their peak. And so our teams actually deployed. I took my team across the network. One of the things that's interesting, or I shouldn't say interesting, but we run a 7-day a week network year round. Okay. Where normally, right, like we just see people add Saturday, Sunday for the last 4 to 6 weeks of the year, and that's how you push volume. We're already elongated in that way, and so we add second shifts across those, and we start adding 100 to as high as 300 headcount in any given building. But we keep the management team the same. So we take corporate staff and we spread them and insert them around the network, and have folks like me go out and insert ourselves as ad hoc leadership for the building. And so I took my team down mostly to our Texas facility for about a week and a half. And we touched ground on Saturday following Black Friday and stayed through the following weekend just to make sure we did it. So, like, for example, I ran pack out stations and some new hire trainings on pack out and things of that nature. And so it's a good way for us and my teams to really see, how does the systems work, support our counterparts on the operations side, and also get really first, face to face with our end merchants and say, oh, wow, like this is what this brand is that we sold in January. This is what it looks like at the pack station, and get really, really hands-on intimate. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over the last couple of weeks, but ultimately our teams delivered when they needed to deliver, and we're really excited about the outcomes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we love to hear a sales guy getting their hands dirty. I mean, that's pretty good. I like that. I think that's good for, like you said, seeing like actually what is happening. Like, okay, we sold this brand, and now like what does it actually look like going out the door, right?
It is good because one, we know our systems intimately, and then I have my team give a breakdown of things that sometimes it's good to come in with fresh eyes and not be an operator and be like, why do we do this when I go to scan to pack, or when I scan to pick, or why are we printing out a pack slip in 2025? I think we're beyond that. Should we go back to that merchant and ask, do they really want that? Do they need that? So it does help us, and we get a lot of feedback from it, because we get fresh eyes on an operation and a market, et cetera. And so we spend a day and we say, all right, write down everything that you saw and let's bubble it up and make sure we do it. So it's good from that perspective. You mentioned before, like I'm so much more than a sales guy in this industry. Yeah. I grew up as an operator. So my first 7 years in this industry, I don't like people to know that, because you do get sucked back into the door. So unfortunately, I had to do more work than I like to do for the last couple of weeks. And you should ask Kevin Sides. He now knows he's got an operator as a sales leader, but it is good, right? And I even learned things. I'm like, I'm wondering why would we price it this way? I'll change some of my commercial strategies after some of the things that I saw through this year. So overall, it's perfect for our business. It's a great way for us to deliver on our values. One of our core values is merchant first, and so putting our teams in there to make sure we're successful for them, and then just really truly understand how the tech works and how the operation works, and get to know our operational counterparts at a whole new level. It's nothing but positive being my first peek in this business here at ShipMonk.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, definitely. And I think, I can definitely feel that sentiment of like, I don't necessarily want people to know.
I try to break a few dishes. If you talk to my peer in ops, he didn't love my quality. He felt like they had to clean up a few picks along the way and some packs, but overall, like it is good, and I think it even changes my team and how we handle a tour. Like now, anyone on my team can just scan their card, hop in at a pick cart at a pack station, and show a merchant firsthand that's thinking about doing business with us. So I'm really excited about what our team's learned this year.
Yeah. I think that's like a big step up too for the sales team. I think because you go in as a salesperson and you're trying to do the walkthrough and all that stuff, and then somebody's like, "Well, how does it actually work?" And then like you're looking for somebody like to grab, right, or call somebody like, "Hey, can you come over and like log in and show us how this works?" And now they can just do that, which I think is like,
that's it.
Fantastic. Yeah,
that's it. And so super excited about it. I think it'll change our teams for the better going through it. And I know my peers are happy to get the support from corporate when it matters, right? They don't feel like they're out on an island and stuff like that. So it's been good.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about automation in the 3PL world. So I guess what are you seeing lately in the past year? I think it's been about a year since we spoke last, right? So what have you seen in the last year in terms of on the automation front, and is ShipMonk utilizing automation in any way? What are they looking at from a 3PL perspective?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Ever feel like a consultant doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to operations? You need someone that knows what you're dealing with. That's the experience that today's sponsor, the Breckham Group, brings to the table. Built by operators and engineers, they help you bridge the gap between strategy and execution inside your distribution center. Learn more about how their proven framework called Precision Supply Chain Operations can bring faster performance, greater efficiency, and real ROI at breckhamgroup.com. That's BRECHAM group.com.
Yeah, obviously, I'm very different type of automation than when we last talked, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think for us, it's very challenging. Like anytime, just in general, anytime a 3PL wants to invest or needs to invest in automation, especially in a shared environment like we run, you have to make sure that it affects and helps every person in that building. And we have such a variety of verticals, probably 4 or 5 different verticals that we primarily focus on. And then so many different routing guides and packing profiles and packing materials and SOPs that it really is hard to find something that's all things to everyone. Because if I invest in automation, it does raise the overhead of the building. And then if they don't get to benefit from it, all I did was raise their cost and not give them any delivering return on investment on the back end. So we are very mindful about it. Most of our focus areas have been within the actual software that runs the building to get more and more optimization on more manual efforts than typical we see in some other folks. And so we spent a ton of time this year around optimizations through artificial intelligence on product placement in the warehouse and replenishment and directed putaways and just ways to eliminate touches and steps in the warehouse and shrink the overall footprint. I think the other areas we saw a more traditional automation around sortation and conveyance that has been a big payoff for us. We focus heavily on last mile things. And so we've incorporated a whole bunch of dock management and scanning events of being able to take parcels that are coming off of a sort and then link them to a container, a pallet, a gaylord, whatever you want to call it, so piece to container. And then I want to link those pallets to a truck outbound. So I have the proof that things actually went where they should go to and go into the right carrier, and I can validate all of it because I'm sure, as you're well aware, besides FedEx Express, I don't have any carriers that are scanning on my docks anymore, right? And so sometimes that scan event's not happening for upwards to 18 hours after it's picked up from my warehouse. Yeah. And so we want to have accountability in there. So we've been able to roll out in several markets really good sort capabilities that give us that piece to container scanning event without having to have people in the process. And so we got huge payouts and payoffs with that. We're going to continue to roll that out in more markets in the first half of 26. And so I don't think here as we sit in 25, rolling into 26, most people think of that as like automation or like cutting edge technology, but it's sound and it's tried and true for us. And so it's just a matter of going from a few markets to get it across the all 6 markets and the 8 or 9 facilities that we talked about in the US and be able to do it. So that's been our big focus is the software. Sure. And in that sortation piece is where we're seeing the biggest bang for our buck right now.
Yeah. And you had a great point in there about, from a 3PL perspective, right? You have multiple different clients, right? Multiple different product types in some scenarios too. And if you're going to invest in something, right, it's got to work for everybody. You don't want to just raise the cost and then not, have any kind of efficiency gain or benefit or ROI there. So, I mean, if you look kind of across the landscape of automation and robotics, I mean, what are you seeing that's kind of actually, real and like delivering real ROI? And what do you think is kind of maybe just kind of hype and not necessarily there yet, or maybe you think never will be there? What do you think from that perspective?
Well, I've lived this very tip of the spear in this sector. And the reality is, I think, if you point some of your listeners' eyes to just what played out in a matter of weeks with Kroger and Ocado, I think is they're willing to write a $350 million check to get rid of an asset that was supposed to go across 10 facilities. They've already spent billions to make this happen in an automated storage and retrieval system that was going to revolutionize their Kroger.com business. And multiple years into it, billions of dollars later, they write a $350 million penalty and say, I'm out, we're done. And so I think that's the most telling because, as you know, I was the most bullish on automated storage and retrieval because it not only optimized pick paths and picking, it also optimized the building for vertical heights. And so the issue that happens is it is so like like it has to be so specific of a profile. You cannot have a variety of SKU types. You cannot have a variety of sizing. If you have a long Pareto curve in terms of SKU proliferation, and you have to dig into, off the top stacks down to the bottom stacks, as an example, in a stack storage, very, very challenging. And so they make more sense if, like, I'm a brand that's running their own warehouse and I have a very specific SKU size, shape, whatever, and I'm just going to rinse and repeat all day, every day, predictable volumes. If not, you're bolting down something that is high CapEx to put it down, with an ongoing OpEx of the AI and the platform that drives all of that and the warehouse execution, that it's hard to really get the payback. And that's what we saw happen in the case of Kroger as probably the largest example of that. And so now when you think about cost of capital, and interest rates have not moved much, inflation's still lingering around and keep rearing its head, it's hard to write tens of millions of dollar checks and then hope for a 10-year payoff right now in 25 rolling into 26. And so that's really the dilemma. It's not that, like, some of these technologies can't actually perform. They're just very limited in the use case. And so when you take what I said earlier and say, I'm now going to have, say, 50 different packout types and 4 different verticals and 150,000 different SKU variants inside my warehouse, I can't standardize that. And now I can't justify bolting down a $10 million capital piece of equipment in hopes that I get it paid off. Because the other thing that we as operators in the 3PL space face is we have short contracts compared to the life cycle of what that machine should go. Yeah. And if I buy it for one, and let's say I have a 3-year contract with them, but I'm looking at a 7-year ROI, well, I can't go down that path very easily. So that's what's really standing in the way of some of the things that I think are tried and true, like an ASRS. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And everything else is material handling equipment from my perspective. If you look at an AMR bot, that can be replaced with conveyance, that can be replaced with cart pick, with optimization. And so look at what's going on in the AMR landscape, right? We saw Fetch Robotics is now going to be wound down coming out of Zebra, right? They put that big investment. We saw last year where Ocado bought from Shopify 6 Rivers for $12 million on a $475 million acquisition back in COVID. Yeah,
not a bad buy.
AMR is starting to look like single standalone, Locus is front running in that space. But even I run Locus in my warehouses, and the ones I run it into, I see 3x the amount of picks per hour from manual picking than I do from a Locus environment. So we've wound that down because they've had to increase their prices, and rightfully so. They got to, they have a lot of series rounds, and they've got a lot of money sitting into it. At some point in time, they have to pay back those investors. And so now when you start charging what the actual cost is of those things, they don't start to make a lot of sense against what labor still is in the marketplace. And so things that seem the most logical as we roll into 26 now are not. And then if you think about, all right, what are the things that we get excited about when we're in our videos? And it's the humanoids. Yeah. Like, that is the most fictitious thing that is happening. And we don't need a robot to look like a person, right? Like the human body is a special design, and to replicate that with a machine, as we're seeing, is really hard to do, especially when things are very dynamic and fast paced and changing. And so we're seeing lots of big bets from an investor landscape and VC world really going there. But the reality of that is we're a long way, if ever, where the humanoid robot makes a lot of sense in something so variable as a distribution center for e-commerce, or a parcel sortation of parcels like in a UPS or a FedEx and stuff like that. So I think that's the one that's like it's fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's cool to see, XYZ different brand that's doing it, do their thing. But here's what those videos are, I don't know what's real anymore in terms of like, I'm a believer we need the AI stamp, right? Like, because I don't know what's real and not real when I look at a video anymore. And you look at some of those, like the gaits of a robot in some of the videos, it's like, it looks like there's a person in a suit in some of these things, right? So I'm, as cool as it is, and I love seeing the feeds. Like, I love innovation, but at the same time, you can't just bolt down tens of millions of dollars of CapEx and hope it works. That's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think, very interesting perspectives there, and very interesting to hear some of that stuff. And it's pretty interesting your point there around, the investment money that's flowed in there, and now some of these solutions are like we gotta pay our investors, so we're increasing prices, but then that's like challenging the ROI in a sense,
Yeah.
which is a difficult challenge to have. So, I mean, are there any solutions out there that are kind of like have your attention as something that's like this is potentially viable for us?
I don't know. I mean, we're still we tinker. Like, don't get me wrong. I make it sound like we don't mess anything. And if you talk to my CEO, he talks about this boneyard of tried and failed things that are out there. So
Yeah.
we do a lot and we try it, but we do it less likely in a proof of concept and more of like tried and true. And so I think our most likely, and I don't know if people necessarily think about this as automation up, but like things like pack out optimization. So an auto bag or a box, like that's bigger impact than I think people give credit to. And that's very tried and true. Like that stuff's been around a long time. And, and if I can, have something convey into a bag and self-seal and self-label versus me having to stop, open the bag, put an item in, peel the strip off, fold it over, print a sticker, put it on. Think about like that's 10, 15 seconds of labor every time. And when you think about any one of my warehouses doing, 50, 100,000 plus orders in a day, that starts to like 10 seconds adds up real fast. Right. So I think we'll see more in packaging optimization in the not too distant future, more so than like a robotics play of goods to person or persons to goods or any of those types of solutions, just because the packaging automation can support a wide variety much easier than some of those robotic solutions can.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting perspective there. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and some interesting things definitely happening at the pack out area for sure that I've seen. So now we're like coming to the end of 2025 here as we're recording this. And I think, one thing for sure, like 2025, a lot of kind of uncertainty, right, around some of the tariffs and changes and some of the international cross-border stuff that you were mentioning earlier, right? So this, I mean, when people are hearing this is like early 2026, right? So going into the new year, I mean, what are you advising, like, for the brands that work with you? I mean, what are you advising them on how to kind of navigate some of this uncertainty and what might continue to unfold in the new year?
Well, there's several things. So I think one that I'm seeing already here in early conversations for next year, people running their own warehouses as a brand, especially if they have a fixed asset where they own the building, getting that off the books and selling that asset and going from a fixed cost model to a variable cost model, I think makes a ton of sense rolling into, especially if they have to do any software optimization or investments in automation to make that work. There's a lot to be said from going to a fixed cost to a variable cost model and pay as you go without having to like capitalize that on the front end. Cash is king. And cost of capital's not getting cheaper as we roll into next year. So those are two, lots of conversations we're having in that regard. I think the other thing is we've seen really a lot of things slip over the last couple of years of people like making, like wanting to almost stay in a bad relationship because of the uncertainty. So it's like almost like that abused relationship where it's like, all right, I'll just stay put because the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. And what if. And so we just stay put, even though it's not a great fit of capabilities or relationships or whatever the case. So I would encourage people, like, if you need to move, then move. Like if you need to make an investment and do it, right? I think we watched so many projects and transitions of 3PLs or whatever slip over the last 2 years because of almost calling it like making perfect the enemy of good, where it's like, I need to make sure that we understand the landscape, or I need to make sure, what if one more technology rolls out, or what if one more 3PL comes to market that's going to be better than that? And so they're staying status quo, they're staying okay versus let's get out and let's invest and let's move on. I think I do think some of the uncertainty of tariff changes. I think we're seeing that slow down quite a bit. Not to say there won't be more of it, but it does feel like embrace where it's at now and figure out how to solve for it. And then if it softens, and okay, like, all right, we'll just make your new normal the new normal. And so I think that's one. I think if there's anybody that's still left in selling into the U.S. specifically from whether it be Mexico, Canada, or any other foreign country, de minimis is gone.
Yeah.
It's not coming back. You should localize and get your product in the U.S. as fast as you can, and ideally into multiple markets as fast as you can in the U.S., and start optimizing for customer experience. Last mile logistics will, with the speed and the cost savings, will drastically help. So I think people that tried to see if Mexico would become viable again, like, it's not. You need to get out of there and need to get out of there fast. And so I think those are the handful of things where we're having the conversations, and where it's like, make the move, get back in the U.S.
Yeah.
If you need to make a 3PL change, make it early, get it settled in for next peak. Like, those types of things I think are really critical. And then, like I said, on the front end is let's go ahead, and if I'm running my own building today, let's get out from that. Let's outsource to experts. Let's take advantage of their tech. Let's take advantage of their last mile deliveries and scale, and let's sell our asset off if we own the building.
Yeah. Great advice there. Definitely. And you mentioned, like looking for a new 3PL, right? Or transitioning to a new 3PL. And you talked about, maybe staying with the 3PL too long, even though it's a bad relationship, because you're just uncertain about things. I mean, I'm curious, like, because you're from the sales perspective now, right? So I mean, you're talking to brands all the time. I imagine your team is, right? And what are you seeing in, I guess, the last year now, or most recently? I mean, what are you seeing are some of like the top drivers or reasons that brands are looking to break up with their old 3PL and get out of that abusive relationship, as you said?
Yeah, it's a couple things primarily that I'm seeing. One is visibility. So being able to see everything from receiving through outbound, really all the way through last mile delivery. Okay. So dashboarding, reporting, that's a big conversation, especially folks that have maybe legacy systems or haven't invested in a portal experience or don't own their tech or whatever the case may be. So visibility, one. Controlling last mile delivery cost is problematic. And this year, people got really exposed in the landscape because the postal change that happened with USPS getting really changing how workshare went to market. And it wasn't too bad in past years. Like, like a 3PL could have like a DHL ECommerce and a USPS and 2 or 3 and do a rate shop and be okay and be in line with the market. But this year, folks that were too heavy in that space saw double-digit plus rate increases and no way to offset it or figure out where to go. And so a lot of people took on way heavier of a general rate increase rolling into 25 than they should have. And so transportation cost and really cost controls year over year, I think is a big topic that we talk a lot about. And I think we've got a really strong proposition. My peer, Devin Knight, is about as good as it gets in the space. And I've been, as I've been a transportation guy long before I was a fulfillment guy. And so Devin's solid. What he built with virtual carrier networks and rate shop is like a table stakes type of a thing. So that's great. We've got, 10-ish carriers, whatever, and we can rate shop, but he took it to another level. We build it as 3 buckets where it's like I'm committing the price by weight and zone regardless of who the last mile delivery is, and we'll optimize accordingly and protect you against, if it should have gone DHL but we send it UPS, like we're not going to punish you for that. And so we know when it goes 2 pounds, zone 5, it's $5 or whatever the rate says every time, regardless of who the last mile, because I get a different rate from UPS than I get from DHL than I get from USPS, and on the list goes. But that's one of it. And then on the back end of it, it's the back office, I think, is actually our specialness, right? It's the control of service, the monitoring of service, the holding the carrier's accountability to pricing. Most billing in the delivery network happens through high-speed automation. It's upwards of 30% error rate across most of the carriers. And so if you don't have somebody that can look at and identify what the rate should have been versus what you're getting billed, like you probably have a 30% impact right off the bat. So our team's doing that. There's the optimization. We make tweaks on a week-to-week basis at a 3-digit zip code level if we see performance issues. I think a great story for that team in our Louisville market. I may be off a day or two. I made a post on this recently. So if what I say verbally is different than what I posted, is not intent to deceive, but let's call it 11/26. An event started happening in Louisville market. USPS got backlogged and couldn't scan origin parcels. The claim was obviously UPS had the Worldport crash. UPS is now Fly's postal product, right? That came on in 25. So the claim was it had an impact of that crash with UPS trickled into USPS's network. And so we saw gaylords upon gaylords not getting processed. My team monitors this on a day-to-day basis. And so 2 days later, they said, this isn't getting better. We turn them off. And we routed all of that volume outside of USPS without changing our price to that rate card I was talking about. So we ate the cost. December 10th, USPS puts an alert out. By the way, we're having an issue identified in Louisville, Kentucky. 12 days go by before they alert the markets, and my team made a switch in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
That's what we talk about, is that power of the back office of that virtual carry network, when we can identify something almost in real time of 48 hours and make a switch that solves that problem. And that's just one example of many where we diverted volume, or we ran line hauls because origin markets got saturated, so we skipped the origin pickup and do direct line, all little things like that, because the team's monitoring all those things. So anyway, all that sidetrack was about carrier management. Carrier costs is a big topic of conversation. And I think lastly, it's around the tariff stuff, right? Like we talked about early, like we launched bonded warehousing. So people are looking for like a different way. Like maybe I can leverage bonded or FTZs and diversify cash flow and stuff like that. So those are the big ones. And then there's some other things, like it's more of like at a provider by provider, case by case basis. But we do get into conversations about inventory accuracy, order accuracy. Those are still problematic for people that don't have good quality systems or good WMSs in place.
Sure.
And so those are things we get into some conversations about from time to time. And then after that, it's like nickel and dimey about like, I want more cross-border capabilities, or I want a better merchant success partnership, or I want some of this more collaborative, or little things. But those first 3 to 4 are like 80% of the time feels like that's why they're reaching out to talk to somebody like us.
Yeah, interesting to hear some of those things, and that the USPS situation, I mean, is really, really interesting too, because I mean, certainly like what an advantage like your brands had, that you had visibility and were able to pick up on that and make that kind of pivot and switch there. So really great to hear that example. And I want to ask you a little bit too about like brands scaling, right? And how their 3PL kind of plays a part in that. Cause you mentioned like Dr. Squatch, for example, earlier, right? And you guys do fulfillment for them, is my understanding, right? Is that correct? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Great partnership. Yeah.
So, and obviously, big news for them this year, right? That they got acquired by Unilever, right? So tell us a little bit about like, how does the 3PL like play a part, and like, what are the key things that the 3PL should be doing to help the brand continue to scale? I mean, obviously, not every brand is going to rely on their 3PL to help them get acquired by like Unilever, for example. But what are some of the things that like a 3PL can do to help continue the brand to scale? Because it's a win-win situation, right? The brand grows, 3PL kind of grows with it too, right?
Well, that's partnership, right? Mm-hmm. When you can collaborate to make each other better, iron sharpens iron, and they're a perfect case of that. I mean, Andrew Sutton, who leads that team, shout out Andrew. They lean in. Him. He's a long time guy on the show too, right? I believe you've had him on here. Yeah. So Andrew and what his team does, super collaborative. They don't ever yell at us, scream at us, even when things aren't going right. Like they lean in, and they're data heavy. Mm-hmm. So they bring data, and we have a lot of data, and we talk data, and we say, hey, we're trying to solve this. We're trying to do this. A lot of collaborative discussions, across our teams over the years. And what a great story, right? roughly $1.5 billion acquisition. Like what a great story. If you don't have supply chain solved, you don't get that valuation or that acquisition, right? So let's make sure we give some credit where credit's due, that we've come along, give them a solid supply chain. So there's an old adage in this industry, at least when we talk like people that insource go to outsourcing in 3PL, it's like, hey, we can take those low dollar items and focus areas off, so you can focus on high dollar activities, right? Marketing, customer, product. And that's what we did for them. We took something that was super noisy for them that they had to handhold all day, all night, and got it to where they could just, check in once a week, have our monthly touch base calls. Hey, let's talk about this. We want to speed up a delivery. We want to solve this problem. This state's having this issue. We're launching this new product, and we have collaborative discussions around that. But they don't have to come babysit us. They weren't at peak this year, like helping to pick and pack. Glad to report we had 0 merchants in a building in peak in 2025 across our entire network. That's an awesome story, right? If you're outsourcing, outsource. Yeah. You don't want to come in and helicopter mom and be like, I got to come in and help pick and pack because you know what you're doing, right? You've chosen the wrong partner if that's the case. And so I think that when you give supply chain stability and somebody like a Dr. Squatch, who is a phenomenal marketer, can hit the cash button and say, let's go market, let's go grow, let's grab market share. And they don't have to worry about rails, breaking underneath them as they're on the train. We can keep it on track for them, and they can push more revenue. They can add more retailers. They can push more products, all of those things. And so I think that's a special and unique story, but they're not the only merchant that we've had that's been acquired because of giving them a strong supply chain. And so I think that's a whole level of specialness with them, with how bad it was before they got here, how much time and resources they focused on making sure that they could remotely get the right product out to their customers within a handful of days at, and longer transit time. We've taken multiple days off their click to doorstep measurements, really optimized sub 4 days now across their network. And so, so it's a great story. And I think that goes to show how important the right 3PL and supply chain partner is so that you can, focus on high dollar problems. Let us take on the low dollar problems and execute on their behalf. And we give people a lot of scale. Like we're pushing over 40 million orders. That's scale, right? And especially if you come in and leverage our transportation program, leverage our packaging programs, and let us optimize. We're doing a ton of things in continuous improvement right now with our domain team. So we separate the product of fulfillment into like subdomains of that are like product and tech and ops rolled each at a vertical level. So like an example for us is like B2B has a domain, B2C has a domain, and there's somebody that sits on top of that and leads that strategy. They have a handful of resources on the tech side allocated to them. They have a project manager. They have voice of merchant coming across my teams to be able to speak on behalf of our customers of what's needed in those things. And so there's roughly 10 domains across the business. That's where the investment happens. So we've rolled out a ton of products this year. Things like carrier overcharge protection is one of the things we're the most proud of, where because we know what each item is in terms of size and weight, we have a pack out algorithm. We know which box or bag or packaging type that should go in to be the most optimal. If we make a mistake and we don't pack it in the right packaging, we know we didn't package it in the right package, and that impacts transportation, we'll credit the delta of taking a big box when we should have used a small box and credit that back to the customer. And then secondly, we know we take a picture of a package at the time of pack out, we take a picture of the items, what's the final packaging, what's the shipping labels, all captured in real time when we do those. So we know the dims and the weights, and we're now holding carriers accountable and saying, we're not taking that dim weight adjustment. We're not taking this because here is it left in our 9x6x3, and you said it was a 20x20x20 by 20, or how many, I don't know how many dimensions I said there, but it's a much bigger box than what, and I'm not taking that 2-pound billable to 10 pounds. We're not doing that, right? And so we push back hard, and that's so all of that falls under that carrier overcharge protection as an example. We did a box optimization product that we rolled out where we can find the most optimized set of boxes like somebody, like one brand we have is like 22 boxes in their set. That's hard to optimize. It's hard to manage that.
Yeah.
So we ran studies and say, how do we get that down to under 10? And then so we're helping them save money on procurement of boxes. We're helping them optimize for shipping. And so we'll run all of those programs for people. Just a few of probably 15 examples that those domain teams rolled out this year. And there's a whole, roadmap for 26 and beyond. We'll continue to iterate. So that's all that continuous improvement stuff. Voice of merchant rolls into there. And so that's what you asked on the front is like scalability is, it's not your brand. It's our 1,000 other merchants that are all communicating to us in real time. And we have mechanisms to capture that. And we find all of a sudden we realize that 50 merchants need and want the same thing. Well, let's prioritize that one thing, whether that's optimizing something in WMS or optimizing something in last mile delivery or whatever the case may be. So we're capturing very, very quickly and pushing that up, through conversations with merchants, whether that's via email, whether that's through our business review process, whatever, that funnels back in through the tech stack. So we can put it back in to drive continuous improvement, things like that. So, so that's some of the big things that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. And very interesting there. And I think it's interesting to see kind of, and how that partnership starts to develop as you put it, right? Like that's a true partnership in building that. And I think really great call out there about, if you feel like you have to be in the fulfillment center, the warehouse, like when all that stuff is going on and peak and, because you don't necessarily trust they're doing the right thing, that's probably not a good sign, right? It's not necessarily like a badge of honor to be in there watching that. It's just kind of like you should be focused on growing, like you said, like let's press that button and pump sales, pump marketing, and do that, and let the experts do their thing. So very interesting to talk to you here today, Jonathan, and always appreciate your insights on the show, and especially diving into a little bit of behind the scenes of ShipMonk today with you, and kind of some of your takes on the industry as a whole as well. So really appreciate you coming on. If people are interested in learning more about ShipMonk or getting in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
As you know, I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's a great place to do it. ShipMonk.com is super intuitive. You can research all the different case studies, all different things. There's a contact my team form on there. So those are probably the two simplest and best ways to get in touch. But we love talking to merchants and if we're not right, we'll still give suggestions. We have a referral network where we reintro inbound things that come to us to other 3PLs that are a better fit. Like we're super transparent and candid about, we want to focus on people that we're going to be able to do excellent work with. And if they're not a good fit, either size or product profiles or whatever, we'll tell them, and we'll make good intros into our other 3PL partner network to be able to do all those things. So yeah, please, we'd love to talk to any folks that are listening.
All right, great. And we will put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So Jonathan, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.